All right, well, welcome to On This Hill, a podcast of Church on the Hill, and we're in a new sermon series.
Yeah, just started last week.
Yeah, it just started last week, so when this comes out, the second one will have been done already.
Yeah,
And
Unwavering, it's called.
Yeah.
If you haven't tuned in yet or been there on Sunday, started last week. Unwavering, a resilient faith.
Yeah, we
in
hit
a
on a
moving
topic
world.
this week that we want to talk about in the podcast here. We're probably going to do that for a little bit in the next coming weeks, sort of follow the
Yeah.
sermon series a little bit
Yeah.
and have a deeper discussion about what's happening in our Unwavering sermon series. But to get into the conversation, I want to ask you a question that's been bouncing around the internet for the last, couple weeks. All right? So
Is this about Taylor Swift going to
it's
the Kansas
not-
City game?
No.
Oh, okay. Because
Unfortunately,
I'm up on that. but-
Are you?
Yeah.
Well, see, apparently you pay attention to a corner of the internet that I do not pay attention to. I am not a Swiftie, but that's sweet that you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is one that I think it probably started on one of the platforms like TikTok, and it's women asking the men in their life a question. So I'm going to ask you that question, even though I'm not the woman in your life.
We're going to role play.
Yeah, no, we're not. No. Could you imagine?
I'm so excited
me?
now.
Yeah.
We don't script this, folks. So
No,
this
we
is all
definitely don't,
spontaneous.
no.
So
Well,
I don't know what's coming.
Yeah. Well, the question I think I'll just ask it to you. How often do you think about the Roman Empire?
I got to tell you, that's not what I expected.
I know it
at all.
isn't. I know it isn't. Yeah. It's kind of a fun thing to watch. The women ask the men in their life this question. But just answer honestly. It's not a trick, but how often do you think the Roman Empire maybe comes?
Is there a
comes
prize
to
at
your
all
mind?
connected to this?
There's no prize.
No reward.
No reward.
Actually, it's a funny question because I think of what we do.
Yeah.
So much of pastoring is part of pastoring. A big part is Bible teaching, and
Yeah.
Bible teaching is in context was the Roman Empire. So I don't know if I can put an actual number on it, but
Yeah.
I probably more than the average person, I would think.
Well, you might be surprised. Do you think it's like if you just had to guess on an average week, maybe how many times do you think? Do you think about it every week? Do you think about it every day?
No, every day would be an exaggeration. I would say once a week, though, probably
at least
in
once
some
a week,
way,
yeah.
shape, or form.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we're teaching in Timothy right now, and it's hard to
Yeah.
teach anything from Paul, especially in 2 Timothy when we know he's sitting in a Roman prison. Like, even if it's not something you dwell a lot on,
Yeah.
it's on your mind.
That's interesting. Now that I'm thinking about it, I just had a conversation yesterday with
Yeah.
somebody about
Yeah.
Rome and the Roman Empire and so forth, the start of the church, the early church, things
There you
like
go.
that.
Yeah.
But I'm sure I'm going to be shocked by the number of
Well,
times.
the reason why I think it's kind of taken off as a meme is because the women are saying, "I never, ever think of the Roman Empire," and a historian started this conversation saying, "You might be surprised by how often the men in your life think about the Roman Empire." So they'll ask them, and many men are saying, "Oh, I think about it 2-3 times a week." A lot of the men are saying, "I think about it at least once a day." I mean, every time you drive on a road, you got to think about the roads of Rome, or every time I flush a toilet, I think about I think about the aqueducts.
Yeah.
And so they were kind of shocked to find out, like, you're thinking about this 3 times a week, or some of them, you're thinking about this every day, and they were just surprised. The reason why I asked that is because one of the things we talk about in this sermon this Sunday, and then we want to talk a little bit more about, is about our attention.
Yeah.
And what our attention goes to. And
grabs
there,
our attention,
there
yeah.
are these obvious differences that I think, oddly, the internet is just finding out that women and men think differently and think about different things, and they're shocked to find
What a
out, like,
shocker.
man, men think about conquest and empire and service and glory
Carburetors
and
Yeah.
things that the Roman Empire often represents.
Yeah.
Now, in as we think about the Roman Empire and we talk about it around Christianity, it's not in usually light of, oh, what a great thing this was,
Right.
but more, oh, this was the strong power that tried to crush the actual power of Christ, and how the resurrection power actually conquers that in the end.
Yeah. The pagan side of the world at the time,
Yeah.
so to speak. Yeah.
But that idea of attention, where our attention goes and what we're paying attention to, is worth exploring. It's something we talk about relatively often as pastors. What are you giving your attention to? But
You think about attention is a big deal in anything, really. We talk about attention a lot in the context of a marriage, for example, and
Yeah.
when we do marriage classes or when we do marriage counseling and things like that, or premarital coaching is the idea that someone said, I don't know who it was, but attention by definition is to enter another person's world. It's a deliberate decision to step into someone else's world. So, one of the best examples is a little kid that's saying, "Daddy, Daddy, listen to me." Or, a little girl grabs Daddy's face because she knows Daddy's distracted.
Yeah.
She just says something super important that he wants him to hear. So, Daddy, pay attention. Or a kid who's acting up who just wants attention. Hey, come into my world, join my world. So,
yeah, that was something crazy I learned when learning about parenting, and specifically learning about kids that might have been through trauma and abuse, is that neglect is the worst thing you can do to a child.
to not pay attention.
Which sounds crazy. You'd think, well, hitting a kid is the worst thing you could do to them. But that a kid actually feels neglect so painfully that they would rather act up until they were hit, until even if they were getting terrible
Negative attention, it's still attention.
they'd rather act up until they got your attention than be ignored. That it's actually more painful.
Yeah.
But where our attention goes, one of the things we say this Sunday is where your attention goes, your soul goes.
Yeah.
So we have to pay attention to what we're thinking on, where our eyes go. And we live in a world, I think one of the reasons why I want to bring up the Roman Empire and this meme that's going around is because the Roman Empire was amazing at spectacle.
Mm-hmm.
Like they could put on a show.
Yeah.
And in a way, I mean, this is relatively common knowledge, I think, if you read history, is that they were really good at saying, don't look at that, look at this.
Right.
Look over here.
Yeah.
At what's happening here. Don't worry about the Senate. Don't worry about the fact that I just grabbed a bunch of power. Look what I'm going to show you in the Colosseums. There wasn't one Colosseum. There was many Colosseums. Every major town had some event center where they would show you fights. They would show you reenactments. They would show you spectacle theater. And they wanted you to pay attention to this because they knew, well, if you're paying attention to this, we can get away with a lot over here.
Yeah. Hey, look at this. I was in Rome. One of our sons and his wife were stationed in Rome for a couple of years, and we got a chance to go visit and several times and touring and looking at architecture. So the architecture is 2,000 years old.
Yeah.
But it's still impressive. It was built to impress. It was built to dazzle. The Colosseum was designed, like you said, for spectacle, the gladiator and so on and so forth.
The columns, the statues, everything's larger than life.
The Pantheon, everything was this, larger than life. In fact, it's funny, even to this day, even the church got onto this in the sense of the basilica is this enormous architectural masterpiece, unbelievable size and design and color and so forth. But it was built to impress, so to speak, and kind of like the Temple of Solomon. Our God is the greatest God, and so spectacle is something that's in us. I think we love spectacle.
Yeah, and I'd say we're definitely in an age of spectacle today. There is an attention economy.
Yeah,
that idea of don't look at that, look at this is still there, and it can be as simple as products. Don't look at their product, look at our product.
Yeah.
Right. Look at what we did. Look at this ad, that we did. Look at this spectacle that we did. Matter of fact, the ads are almost a thing of the past. They're looking for something to go viral now, not to sit down and record something, but we're looking for some event that happens that draws attention to our.
Yeah, it's going to blow up far beyond.
Yeah.
Just the selling of a truck, a Ford truck, is not just a picture of a Ford truck. It's a Ford truck diving through a river, sailing off the mountain, and everybody's laughing as they go.
Yeah, so that economy, the economy for your attention, means it's monetized. Like someone knows, it's not just admin, but politicians and others know that where your gaze goes, there goes your wallet. There goes the economy. If I can get you to look at this, if I can get you to pay attention. Sometimes I wonder about that stuff when we'll have a streaming service of some kind like Hulu or something for a while, and they'll just show me the same commercial over and over and over again. I'm like, I feel like you're guaranteeing I'll never buy your product. You're driving me insane. But they know, oh no, if we keep showing you this, the next time you see it on a shelf between it and one you've never seen before, you'll grab it.
Yeah. There's a lot of psychology behind it.
Yeah.
It's you think about it, a spectacle is designed to capture your gaze, right? And like you said earlier, what we pay attention to, our affections end up being drawn that direction. Right. So if I've paid attention to something as simple as I want a new chainsaw or I want a new car, Oh, I've been shopping for a car recently, and there's a particular car I'm looking for. Well, what I find now as I drive is I see those cars everywhere. And it's crazy. And before, if you'd have talked to me 6 months ago, I didn't. They were just like every other car.
There's a name for that psychological effect. I can't think of it, but there's a name for that.
Yeah. Consumerism, I think I would name it.
Yeah.
But this idea of capturing my gaze, and if I can capture my gaze, then
Your
I'll
affection.
capture my loyalties, so to speak. What a powerful principle, because that's the movement of a human soul, and we don't have unlimited bandwidth when it comes to gazing or affections. We can't be. One of the things we talk about, we said, is you can't possibly be passionate about 100 things. You can't be passionate about 10 things. People who are really passionate are focused on a small number of things. And that enables them to feed that focus and feed that passion and feed those affections in a way that doesn't hopefully destroy them.
You said we were talking over the sermon. You said something that made me laugh. You said even Michael Jordan couldn't be a great baseball player.
Yeah.
He played baseball, but he wasn't.
He was a great athlete.
He wasn't considered one of the greats.
Yeah, but he wasn't great at every sport.
Because he was really, when he focused
Picked one.
on one, his attention was focused on one, then he was phenomenal.
Yeah, and there's anomalies. Bo Jackson, someone out there listening in sports would say, "Oh yeah, Bo Jackson." But in general, we just cannot focus. Yeah. It's interesting how many times the Bible, and especially in the Old Testament, where God would speak to his people about a divided heart. Your heart, you're not wholehearted. The psalmist said, I want to love the Lord with all my heart. Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength. And if that's pieced out in 100 different places, that's a difficult, I don't know, honestly, as a pastor, after doing this for many, many years, you'd think I'd be a little more polished or professional, but I struggle with my capacity to pay attention to certain things. I have to pare down what comes at me. Maybe, I don't know.
You don't find yourself naturally focused? I mean, you personally, I'm saying, like, are you, I know there's a lot of labels that go around, but I feel like everyone feels a little like we have a hard time with our attention. We have a deficit disorder of some kind. I know there is an actual disorder of that. I'm not making light of it at all. But that we all seem to be disordered in our ability to focus on things. And you find that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think even as a child, I struggled. And again, those kinds of diagnoses, those kinds of studies hadn't been discovered back when I was in middle school or high school. But looking back, I think I always, and on one hand, I struggled with paying attention. On the other hand, I multitasked fairly well. But sometimes that's not a helpful thing. Now, as an adult, life has changed, culture's changed, and now there's not just 50 things that want my attention. There's 50,000 things. You know, the internet and everything connected with it, whether it's Facebook or TikTok or movies or sports or whatever, news feeds.
Are you saying you don't think middle school Bruce would have done good with a cell phone?
I couldn't imagine. I just couldn't even imagine how my life would have been. I don't think it wouldn't have been a good thing for me.
Yeah, I think my generation is the last one to naturally grow up without those things. Gen X. I think we're the last ones because there wasn't an internet when I was a kid, or it was very, very rudimentary when it was first getting going, and most people just didn't even have a computer in their home. So I went home to 3 channels on TV, and that was that. And so I was a reader, and I thank God so much that I had that I honestly didn't have to try for it. It just, if you want to entertain yourself, pick up a book and read, and that's what I did. So it built a habit. But I wonder myself, if I was a middle schooler today, would I have that same habit, or would I just be, scrolling? Would I be able to read a book? There's so many people today it's not that reading a book is the end-all, be-all, most spiritual thing that you can do, but it says something that most of us now struggle to read a chapter in a book, let alone a book. If we're doing a sermon series and we kind of assign people like, hey, you should read this book along with us, the number of people that actually read that book are incredibly small.
Pretty few. It's interesting that, when reading a book or watching a program is for me, I'm sure there's much more scientific explanation, but I think really it's a different function of your brain. It's a different side of your brain.
Yeah, one's very passive, and it's happening to
it's
you.
Just popping. And,
And the other one is active. My brain is engaged,
I'm engaged
in what's happening.
So, as pastors, we always struggle with this, right? Because we don't want to be the internet police,
Right.
the internet bashers, and even if we could be the internet police, it wouldn't produce any good thing.
Mm-hmm.
But what we are is we're really pro heart,
Yeah.
pro pure heart. We're pro like hearing God, understanding God, and
Yeah.
so this idea of what am I looking at, what has captured my attention, I think is a super critical question
Yeah.
for people that are just trying to be, everyday,
Yeah.
followers of Jesus.
Hebrews might be a good time to read this. Hebrews chapter 2. Therefore, we must pay much closer attention to what we have heard, lest we drift away from it.
Yeah.
It goes on, but if we just stopped at that verse, just stayed there, we must pay much closer attention to what we've heard, lest we drift away from it. Written by, we don't actually know who the author of Hebrews was, but written to a people in a time of spectacle.
Right.
I mean, it was a different world for sure, and there's a lot coming at us today, but they also lived in a time when everyone wanted their attention. Look away from this and look at this instead. Hey, your little Messiah over there that died on a cross, why are you paying attention to that? Look over here at Rome.
Yeah.
Look over here at the Caesar. Look over here at the emperor. Like, that's power. Now aspire
That
to
should
that.
impress.
And if you can get people's gaze off of Christ, they will drift. That's the word that's being used here, lest we drift away from it, as he's talking about the gospel. So I think it's still relevant today to say, wow, if they were concerned then about paying attention to what we've heard in the gospel, then how much more today should we be focused in on and cutting away as many distractions as possible? Because like you said earlier, I simply can't be passionate about 100 things. To be passionate about something is to be singular in my focus of it. That's what passion means. I am passionate about my wife.
Yeah.
I have a passion for my wife because it's singular. I won't allow those affections to go other places. It only belongs in one. But I think in our faith, we have allowed the streams to go out. We're not one giant river of affection. It's kind of all of these streams.
It's diffused.
Yeah, it's hard to even start naming stuff because then you're going to feel like you're picking on someone, but I'm passionate about this sport. I'm passionate about this movie franchise. I'm passionate about this book series. I'm passionate about, well, you can't be. You honestly can't be. If you want to be passionate about Christ, then you probably need to start focusing your attention in on the gospel.
A writer of last century, A.W. Tozer, he wrote a chapter in a book called The Gaze of the Soul. I believe it was The Pursuit of God or The Knowledge of the Holy. But in that chapter, he just talked about what our soul fixates on, what our inner person, inner man or inner woman, meditates. In Hebrew culture, Psalm 1 says, "Blessed is the man who doesn't walk in the counsel of the ungodly, but his meditation is in the law of the Lord, and on it he meditates day and night." His delight. So it says his delight is in the law of the Lord, but that delight comes through not just casual glances, but it comes through meditation. Man, meditation. I'm not talking now about Eastern meditation or those kinds of things. I'm talking about this ruminating, this pondering, this
focusing
my mind on something that is true. Which is that's the other side of the coin here. Is that the things or the people or whatever that want our attention, they want our attention for a reason. I would think, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just self-image. Hey, the more likes I have, the more thumbs up I get, the more I feel better about myself.
Because we're on that end of that. We want, like, as an individual, we post something online not because we want no one to see it.
Right.
You have to admit, when you post something online, you want people to see it, and you want them to like it.
Agree with it.
You want, hey, can you show me a little love here for my vacation photo? Show me a little love here for my kid's graduation, or show me a little love. That's what we're asking for.
Yeah, and I think it's so true, isn't it? That it offers us something. It's not like it's an empty exchange. There is this offer of a dopamine hit, or I sold one more product, or something like that. But you think about this idea of spectacle. That it's fascinating to me that in the book of Colossians, Paul would describe the cross as the greatest spectacle of mankind. It says in Colossians, it said he disarmed the powers and authorities, and he made a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them by the cross. So you think about something as dirty, as ugly,
Yeah.
as treacherous as the Roman cross. A naked man beaten to a pulp, nailed to a piece of wood at the crossroads of a city or on a city hill where anybody could walk by and watch. You talk about, you know how people like kind of stop
Yeah.
at accidents? You know, if you're going up the freeway and there's an accident, everything backs up for miles because everybody wants to slow down and look at that. The fender came off, the tires are off, or the car's turned over. What they're stopping to look at is a spectacle of accident, right? But the cross was the spectacle of all human existence.
Yeah.
The center thing. And so
Yeah, so I think that's key because I get in this conversation. I'll get talking to myself about these things because I'll find myself having wandered. I'll find that, oh no, I've drifted. You know, it started out as just, oh, I kind of want to watch that. Next thing you know, I'm 8, seasons into something that's captured my attention off of the thing I say I love and care about.
what does that feel like, though? I mean, like, what do you unpack that just a little bit? Like, how do you wake up? For me, you know how this reminds me of? It's like opening a bag of chips. I'm just going to have 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I'm almost at the bottom of the bag, and it all comes rushing. My system starts to shut down.
Yeah.
I'm going to fall asleep.
Yeah.
I'm salt overloaded.
Yeah, well,
Is it like that mentally?
Yeah, that's it exactly. Because I think what happens is it's that I'm not paying attention.
Yeah.
Something has taken my attention from me, and I've just given it away. And so you kind of like come out, hours
Rubbing
later,
your eyes. Yeah.
What time of day is it? Like, where am I? What's going on?
Yeah.
And
Who
it's
hasn't
like,
walked out of a movie and felt that?
yeah. So you wake up sort of from a daze. And so I'll get down on myself. I'll get down like, and I should be like, oh my goodness, this isn't right. I shouldn't have done this. But I think though there's a trap of going, okay, I just need to not have spectacle in my life. But what you just described is actually the cross is the greater spectacle. I think of what I hate doing this because I know I'm going to butcher it, but it's not that I think it's C.S. Lewis or was it G.K. Chesterton says it's not that our passions are too much, it's that they're too little.
They're too little.
They're too easily satisfied.
Yeah.
And that's what I think the trick is, not to say, oh, to preach at people, say you need to not love things, but no, you need to love the right thing. You need spectacle, actually, but you need the greatest one, the one that actually changed the world. There's no better story than this story. The gospel is the greatest story ever told. It's been said, and it's true. And so we just can't be satisfied by lesser stories. Be it Star Wars or whatever else, galactic empires. These are fun, interesting diversions. And sometimes they actually point to a bigger story, and I can use them and appreciate them. I'll watch a story and think, oh man, that guy's sacrifice for his family was just like Christ sacrificed for me. And I think that's what really good storytelling does.
Yeah.
Is it points to something bigger, but it just makes me think that we can't come to salvation by subtraction. Now, I think it's worth saying that we should fast some things in our life.
Yeah.
There should be this time of saying, I need to not pick up my phone for the next month unless I'm taking a phone call. I need to not turn on the TV or do this that's very worth doing. But you can subtract everything from your life and still not be saved. What we need is addition.
Right.
Sure, some things need to fall away so I can say yes to the right thing.
Yeah.
But I'll never get to salvation. I'll never get to Christ. I'll never get to heaven by subtracting things out of my life.
Yeah.
It has to be addition, and then He will multiply then the truth into my life.
Isn't it interesting that addition, the right things in me deposited in my life, speak to my design, right? When we fast food, or when someone goes on a diet to lose weight, they realize one day, I've been eating too frequently, and I've been eating too much of the wrong stuff, and I've been exercising, too infrequently.
Yeah, I'm going to go on a sugar fast.
So they go on a sugar fast, or they go on the keto diet, or they go on something, right?
Yeah.
And they start cutting stuff out. But at some point, the body floats to an equilibrium that says, I need this much protein, I need this much carbohydrate, I need this much fiber, whatever.
Right.
And in the Christian life, in our spiritual lives, how can we be any different? If we're designed by God, if God truly is our creator, and He designed our bodies to work a certain way with a certain chemistry or balance, how much more would that be applicable to our spirits? to what goes in, the old saying, garbage in, garbage out. If I eat a bunch of garbage, then my body is going to pay that price. Again, on my joints, on my skin, and my organs, somehow it's going to pay a price. And so that's, I think, what we're saying is, we're not just saying, don't do this, don't do this. Yeah. We're saying, pay attention to what this is, but also pay the greater attention to the most important things. Mm-hmm. Isn't it interesting? There's a story in the New Testament where Jesus appears in a cloud on a mountain with his friends, Peter, James, and John. Mm-hmm. And this cloud appears, the Mount of Transfiguration. And what they want to do is build a tabernacle. Lord, we want to build tents. And the voice comes from heaven and says, basically, pay attention. This is my beloved son. Mm-hmm. And I think we are like that too. We're just, okay, God, yeah, just a second. I'm looking over here, or I'm looking over there. Let me help you do this. But sometimes this idea of God just calling us to a place of silence and solitude. Just a few weeks ago on a Sunday here at Church on the Hill, at the end of a time of worship, we were transitioning, and I felt just to sit still, just be still. And I said that we're just going to wait for a minute or two. And the first few seconds was awkward of silence, but you could feel as everybody's just settled into that silence and that it's okay. Mm-hmm. You could just feel something begin to move. I think people began to respond. People began to sense the presence of God. It's hard for me to feel and sense the presence of God in a room of a noise-filled room of people or whatever, right?
The problem with silence is we're alone with our thoughts too.
Yeah.
And some of us are very afraid to be alone with our thoughts.
Yeah.
Like I honestly understand that. I really do. There are times like, I don't want to think what I want. When I reach for the remote or the distraction, oftentimes I think the motivation is I don't want to think.
Yeah.
There's something hard happening that I don't want to think about, that I don't want to deal with. And I'm looking for I'm
just trying to unwind.
Yeah. But again, that's it's not the subtraction, it's the addition. If I will think, rather than just trying to not think, if I will think on the cross, on the gospel, then there's hope. There's actually relief from that pain that I'm feeling, that I'm wanting to medicate by whatever, food or attention or the thing that I'd like to not feel. If I will meditate on the cross, if I will bring the cross into focus to bear on the story that's happening to me that I don't want to live, then there's relief, there's hope. That's what the preaching does. The preaching brings the cross back into our gaze.
Yeah, to the forefront.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
worship.
And worship, singing a hymn, and corporate worship. Because I'm convinced that community really is the answer here. Because I mean, for the most part, we still know it's rude to be on my phone when someone's trying to talk to me.
Yeah, or you're sitting in a date night with your wife.
Yeah, I mean, we were just having a conversation about seeing people in restaurants that everyone was on their phone. Yeah. No one was actually talking to one another in a family. That still happens, but for the most part, we know that's rude. But when I'm alone, when I'm completely alone, I'll watch anything I want to watch. So I think that we've gotten there into this place of addiction to devices, mostly by being alone. And I think community is a big part of the way out. Because if you're around people and friends, and those people then are also focused on the cross, focused on the gospel, the story, the redemptive story, then you're going to just put the device away. Mm. But if I'm alone and just battling it, I'm only going to last so long, and I'm probably going to eventually turn something on or do something. Now, we need to learn to be alone with ourselves and with God as well. But I think community is a big part of healing this wound that we've inflicted on ourselves. Yeah.
You think about this idea of if I was, again, the date night's maybe the best analogy with my wife. Mm-hmm. I'd want to pay attention because it's our time. Let's just say it's an hour that we carved out and we're having dinner, having lunch together.
Yeah.
I think that's an easy thing to wrap your mind around. But then I think of, I've got a half-hour drive and I'm alone in the car. Mm-hmm. Am I able to just be alone without any noise in the car, recognizing that this is that prayer right now, just talking to Jesus, listening for God's voice? Is it the same dynamic? You know what I'm saying? That could I see that the way I'd see my wife?
Yeah.
In the sense of maybe this Jesus that I love, this Jesus that I say is Lord, has something to say to me. But you know what? I just, while I'm driving, I'm going to listen to the latest podcast or the latest this or the latest that. And again, we're not knocking that. That's not
No.
our intent. But it's this idea, or how about this? That maybe asking the listeners out there, or asking myself, when I come in to corporate worship, like you're just describing, a community of believers, the music is playing, the words are on the screen. All I have to do is step across the line to engage, is sing the words and focus on what they're saying. But I find myself sort of checked out, or I find myself bored. Man, is that a time to kind of look back and say, man, what is the condition? What is my attention span in regards to God?
Do you find that true yourself?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think it's good to admit, honestly, that yes, your pastors too sometimes will be like, oh, I'm 2 songs in and I'm not really engaged yet. Like my mouth is moving and I'm here, but there's something I'm still distracted. And sometimes it just takes some time and some effort. That's why I'll often say, and this isn't, raise your hands, don't raise your hands in worship. Move, don't move. Please just set that aside. But the reason why I'll often really engage my body in worship by throwing my hands up.
Yeah.
Stomping a foot. Like I'll just stomp a foot as we sing, and I got no rhythm. So.
I thought that was Umatilla coming out.
That a little bit of that too. But it's because I know, like, these things focus me. Like, I don't do it because I'm spiritual. I do it because I'm not spiritual. I do it because I'm distracted. But if I will engage all of my senses, then my heart will go towards the thing that we're singing about, the thing that I'm hearing. I'll do the same thing. Again, this is just me. Other people focus different ways. But that's why if I'm sitting in a sermon, I'm taking notes. Me personally.
Right.
Some people
it engages my brain at another level.
But with me, if I'll just sit and just jot down a few notes, even just doodle a little bit, something that came to my mind, but it focuses my attention. I think we've lost some of those practices, and that's why, like I say, the preaching of the gospel focuses on the cross. Hymns, the worship, it doesn't have to be called a hymn, whatever it is. If it's a worship song, it focuses me on the cross. Community, fellowship focuses me. The communion, the event of communion, I still think is the prime focus, the prime focus, thing. Because it engages my smell, my taste, my touch, my imagination. Everything is happening during communion. All of the ways that God made me to focus are all centralized and put in one place on what Christ did for me in his death and resurrection. And that communion is, I think, unparalleled in ways of bringing me back to. This is why we repeat it every week. There's no other thing that does what communion does for me.
I think this is why we see, I think to some degree, a move around the world actually on Christians who grew up in one style of faith, perhaps maybe evangelicals would be the word, but they move or they feel drawn back towards liturgy. They are drawn back towards contemplative practices. They're drawn back to services of silence, to monastic prayer retreats, those kinds of things, because frankly, they're just exhausted with all the noise. We could carry on this conversation for quite a while, but there's something I'd like to throw out there before we finish is just a simple sort of an analysis maybe, or a self-generated question. Does my screen time leave me, does it leave me encouraged? Does it leave me with a greater hunger for the unseen things of God, for the deep truths of the gospel, or does it leave me depleted? Does it leave me like eating the big bag of chips or binging on some Netflix show?
Right.
Do I come away feeling? Am I coming away encouraged? Do I start my mornings with a measure of focus that affects dominoes into my entire day? I think those are questions of self-examination that are super important.
So if people can answer that question, then they're probably at step 1.
Yeah.
Like if I know I can answer that question truthfully, and maybe keep it in my mind. So, I don't think it's a question to be asked and answered once, but every morning when I get up and I reach for that phone, is this the thing that's going to encourage me towards what I say is my passion today of Jesus? Is this the thing, or should I just leave that right there and go about the first 30 minutes, hour of my day without it and focused on Christ instead?
I think a lot of people want to grow in their faith. I think a lot of people that call us home, they want to know more about the kingdom of God and the relationship we talk about with Jesus. But I think there has to be at the starting point a kind of a self-analysis of what occupies my time, what occupies my attention, and ultimately has access to my heart and my mind. Some stuff is just blatantly obvious, right?
Sure.
The world of pornography is just blatantly obvious. They don't apologize. There's pictures that stimulate us visually, and they capture our
This is
hearts
only
and
going
minds.
to take from you. It's not going to give you
no
anything.
intention of giving, and they're after addictions, right? But then other stuff is not that obvious.
Some things feel like, oh, this will be fun, and then at the end though, you're like, actually, I don't feel filled or fed.
Yeah.
And sometimes, surprisingly, like I think you and I both like movies. We don't
love a
dislike
good
movies.
movie.
Sometimes there's at the end of the movie, I'm like, that felt great. Like that.
I was
feel like
inspired.
that taught me something.
Yeah.
It showed me something I didn't expect. So it exists. Can I just read the scripture? Maybe we can then end. It's Colossians 3:1. Oh, actually, it's 1 through 3. If then you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God.
Yeah.
Set your mind on things that are above, not on things that are on the earth. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. The part about that, I think, it's all relevant to what we're talking about. But seek the things that are above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. I think seeking is the thing where it's worth asking that question too. Like, if you can answer the question, what am I really seeking? Then that'll help you decide, do I look for it here? Or do I look for it over here? Like, what are you actually seeking? Like I said, when I'm down or I don't, I'm seeking comfort. And the reality is, I don't find it in often the places I want to go first. And where I do find it is sometimes the place I want to go last.
Yeah. Another version of that particular passage says, set your affections. In my affections, I don't have unlimited affections. So are the affections that are going out of my life producing more life in me, or are they just depleting me? The things that I'm giving my affections to, right?
Yeah.
Like you said about, we can't be in love with 10 people. It works, romance and beauty and commitment works best when it's focused.
All right, folks. Well, this is us just going a little bit deeper in our unwavering conversation on Sunday.
Come check us out to kind of get the overview on a Sunday, and then we'll dive a little deeper here on Thursdays.
Yeah, please do, because like I said, I really do believe that the preaching of the word in community is an antidote to a lot of the ills of the world.
And it's countercultural.
It is, yeah. So hope we see you on Sunday, and God bless.
Yeah.